So this is Amazon using very little human intervention, apparently, to fire flexible workers.
Hmm.
So yeah, they seem to be. This is reported by Bloomberg. So,
Ultimately, like
it's a very bad
I mean,
writing in this fact.
they're like, which one are you looking at? The Ars Technica.
Yes, yes.
Basically, Amazon being queen of automation and efficiency and removing the human race from existence. The worst thing is they understand this tool or this system is problematic. However, they're not that bothered by it because as long as they make more money by doing so. But essentially, this automated tool, for whatever reason, is firing their employees, these as you say flexible drivers, which I don't understand it. It's quite crazy because I see just anyone with a van could just become a flexible driver. I've moved house with someone who was also delivering Amazon parcels, and it made for a very, very annoying process. But instead of just picking up my stuff and taking it to my house, it was like, no, we've got a few drop-offs to do. Amazon drop-offs, yeah. Oh, Jesus. Anyway,
That's really
so
annoying.
anytime there's a problem reported or whatever, obviously it will go through this. Yeah, I know, really annoying. And they were super late as well. They're almost like 12 hours late, probably less than that, 8 hours late, but something ridiculous.
Well, it
But
seems like this is using
they had to prioritize this because probably they'd get fired.
very simplified parameters by the looks of it. To be able
Absolutely.
to.
And just a ripe. I think there's a delay. I think there's a delay going on. I think it's just ripe for
What
just
delay?
unconscious bias, basically. Just
I did that on purpose. Sorry.
okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, you can see that they are going after the things that are important to the company in terms of delivering packages faster, without racking up parking tickets. These are obvious things that you have to kind of adjust for. But I saw a thing a little while ago that suggested that Amazon was actually worried that it was going to run out of employees because of the speed at which they burn through them. And I don't think this is necessarily just the flexible workers. It's not just the drivers. It's not just the warehouse staff. But actually, there is an issue, or there certainly was an issue with former Amazon tech employees like myself, where when I left, there was a tool that would tell you how long you'd served in comparison to other people. And at 2 years, I think I was in the sort of the top 90% of longest serving people,
Wow.
which was insane.
2 years.
Yeah. So at the time, it was the case that you'd either served 2 years and then left, or you'd served like 14, which would have put you starting somewhere in the late 90s. And the main reason for that was to do with the share capital, really. So you kind of get bought in, you're waiting for your shares to vest. And so because they do issue a lot of what are called restricted stock units, so you're actually given stock at a certain value, which, considering the rate at which Amazon stock has gone up, like, you would be mad to have not stuck around and waited for your shares to vest.
Yeah.
So they kind of get you in there at that point, but generally that doesn't really get issued within the first year or so. So I don't know how it's changed, but over time. But it's there's a heavy turnover of staff because of how hard it was to work there. So, for example, in adding up the amount of hours that I did 2 years worth of work and did about 4 years worth of hours. So it was colossal. A burnout that I don't think I've recovered from in the almost 10 years since I left.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it really can drain you. So I'm not really surprised that they are following algorithmic similarities, I'd say, because it does feel like it's the algorithmic equivalent to them just pushing you and pushing you and pushing you until you break, because that is how Amazon tend to treat people. They they get a lot out of you, and you do great things. And I have used it, used the experience I gained there to great value in my future career. But yeah, it's hard work. It's hard work there.
I mean that is one way of looking at it, that it pushes you. But I also think that I don't know. I can't speak because I'm not a flex driver, of course. I don't know whether it's actually pushing people beyond their limits, like you experienced. I think this is literally using, it says locked gates, inclement weather, and bad selfies, all reasons drivers report they were fired by the bots.
Mm.
Locked gates, I mean, that's probably something to do with, a locked gate meant they couldn't get into the thing or whatever, and they were shut out for half an hour. I don't know, whatever it is. But it's probably looking at things without any sort of context and deciding. Someone with a white collar sitting up in an office somewhere decided that was not appropriate and would fire someone without.
Well, then they're not the only company to do this, though. I mean,
no,
Tesco, for example, all of the supermarkets have a similar sort of speed type policies on, like, for example, checkout workers. You can't have a queue that builds up of more than a certain number of people, and they have cameras that are watching that. And it's probably a lot more primitive technology than what is available in Amazon. But again, you also have the amount of time it takes to process someone through that checkout. Like, and I think we talked about this last week, actually.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, it sort of takes the human element out of it. But also, Amazon have been doing these sort of bot-like algorithmic experiments across their entire system for a hell of a long time. I mean, way back in the 90s, there was an experiment that they ran, which was somewhere around 97, 98, that was pitting the editorial staff that recommended books on the homepage against an algorithm. And they would measure the success of purchases between the algorithmic recommended for you, which you see all across Amazon, versus the human experience. And can you guess which one of them won? It was the algorithm, and so all of the editorial staff were fired in favor of the algorithm. Now, Amazon would clearly do exactly the same thing if they managed to get those Prime Air drones off the ground. So with the drivers, and with picking bots as well. I'm sure they're heading towards automation fully. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but it can feel quite aggressive. So as things go on, and I don't know. What I really liked about the if you think about the sort of human element of recommending a book to somebody, it is a shame that we don't really have that in Amazon. I think when Love Film moved into being Amazon Video, I think that was certainly something that we lost a little bit. Love Film had a much more friendly way of talking to people, and a much more personable way of talking to people, and actually all of that content was curated, and I think the choice there was richer in my experience. I think the unless you're talking about something like GPT-3 and that GitHub algorithm, which we looked at just before, I think things are, I don't know, very sort of one-sided. You tend to get your, it tends to collate itself more around like the masses, whereas actually I prefer a lot of long-tail content in a lot of scenarios. So if we're talking about something like film, there's a lot of different genres I prefer, but if I'm looking for an old film, and I watch a lot of black and white films, it's quite difficult to find that content on Amazon, whereas in the past it actually wasn't that difficult to find it on Love Film, because there was classics sections that were curated to say these are the good ones and these are the bad ones. These are the ones you should try and watch, and these are the ones you shouldn't watch. Whereas actually there isn't any section really like that on Amazon at all. It's very difficult to find because there isn't that human element. So I don't know. I think it's good that they are pushing us in a direction where, I mean, the automation that we've got now is just unreal, isn't it? But you do lose that human element. So I do think we need to find a way of retaining that somehow. Otherwise, we're all going to become very robotic.
I mean, speaking about that long form content, not that we have enough already to do with this podcast, but it would be an interesting discussion to take these sorts of topics and really just dig into them. And because I have a bunch of thoughts around this even right now, but we've got a bunch of news articles to get through. But
yeah, I've just
I think
sorry.
no, it's fine. But it just enlightens my eyes to this. There are these things, these fundamental things, these existential things, topics that are ripe for picking. Maybe it's for the podcast or something else, I don't know, but it's certainly something I would like to explore. But yeah, I mean, in summary, it's a very divisive topic. I think pros and cons across the board. I think there just needs to be a balance. I think technology needs to support humans and to do their job, not replace them. With some level of empathy is probably something Amazon lacks, and I think that they would do anything in their power to make money, and that's probably the perception I have, and doesn't paint a very good picture of them in my eyes.
It's true, but it's interesting because that's never spoken about internally. Money is one of the things.
They're always listening.
No, money is never really spoken about in Amazon, which is very odd. Unlike a lot of other organizations, they're always focusing on customer experience and trying to deliver the best possible experience to the customer. And you never really talk about money. If you're talking about adding new people to a team or something, that's never really talked about unless it's at a very, very senior level. And that's unusual in comparison to a lot of other organizations. So it's a bit strange in a way that it does seem to, it feels like it's focused on making more money. But generally there is a sort of build it and they will come
make money
vibe about Amazon. Yeah, essentially. I mean, there's actually a thing called the Amazon flywheel, which you can Google, and that gives you an understanding of what their thoughts were around this. That if you drive for customer experience, it will build organic growth, and that is essentially what they've done. They've tried to deliver a better customer experience, but it is all based around the masses. But yes, you're right. We're going really off on a tangent at the minute. So
it's a good topic, though.
It is a good topic. We should certainly talk about it.